back to the workshop. Now, I had a lot of interest in the first video when I showed the proof of concept of some kind of G-code generator. So I had some software that I'd written in Excel up there, and I showed that I was able to link it into the CNC machine and generate some very simple shapes. Now, I even had someone from the CNC forum send me their version they'd written quite a few years ago, and that gave me a few ideas, and it was really good to have their technical advice and inputs about maybe where to take it and where to go. So a big thank you to that person. As part of this video, I thought I'd give you a bit of an update of where I've got to with the software and what my plan is. So the proof of concept was looking pretty good, so I decided just to make the code as watertight as possible so it didn't fall over, and then I just tidied it all up. So I've condensed all the features just basically onto this main page. The idea is to get a short, compact bit of code that runs really reliably, and once I've got confidence in it, let's see, maybe I'll add some more functionality. So let me just give you a bit of an overview as to where I'm at with the code now.
Okay, so I'll be making some changes and just making sure the code is a bit more robust, and here it is. So when we fire up Excel, you'll notice that you don't really see Excel come up, it just goes straight to the form, and then it just makes it a little bit cleaner, and once you're finished using it, you just close it and it goes away again. So the idea is you just have a little shortcut on your desktop and it just fire this up. Just in case you want to get into the code, and I wasn't sure if I'd be able to sort of break into it if you like, so I added a little button down here and that takes you into Excel, and then you can go into the code and keep editing it like that. And I'll keep that button in so you can go and have a look for yourselves. So what have we done then? So there's two kind of features at the top here relating to a circle. So originally on the first proof of concept, if you like, it just did an inside circle. So if you had a circle of 10 millimeters, that's the circle you got. If you went really large, then you'd get left with a piece of material in the middle if you didn't go all the way through. So sometimes you might just want to cut around the outside and just cut a hole basically all the way through. But if you want to do a pocket, so don't go all the way to the bottom, and you want to just take out some material, then you'd want to go for the pocket option. And what that does is it creates a spiral in the center, and once it's finished, it goes to the top, it goes a little bit wider, creates another spiral, a bit wider, another spiral. And that way, if you're not going all the way through the material, so you just want a counterbore or something, you'd want to choose the pocket function if your tool is going to be too small compared to the hole you're cutting. Otherwise, you'll leave a piece of material in the middle, which you might want to get rid of. So they're the two options at the top. And if you go for the pocket option, there's a percent step over the tool, so 30, 50%, whatever you want to go for. The rest of the options are the same, but just briefly I'll go through those. So you've got your tool diameter, you've got where your center of your hole is, X, Y, Z. So typically you touch off the center there where you know you want the hole. Center your machine X, Y, Z to 0, and then use the zeros on there so you know it knows where the hole is. And then you'd want some kind of clearance or safe height. In my case, I've gone with 0.1 millimeters. So that's where the tool's going to come down first before it starts its operations. Then you've got your circle diameter, so that's the inside diameter. So the tool will cut a hole which is exactly 10 millimeters. Then you've got circle depth, so just in case you weren't going all the way through, you might want a pocket of a certain depth, or if you've got a piece of material, you can just make, say you got 3 mm material, you could just say make that 3.1 just to make sure you're definitely going to go all the way through if you want a hole. Radial stock to leave is so that when you rough down, you might want a little bit of stock on the edge if you're worried about the finish on a hole. Often you aren't, but if you are, you can do that, and maybe you want to use 0.1 there. If you just leave it like that, it will finish the hole 0.1 millimeters short. So if you want to do that finish pass as well, you need to check that box there. What it will do is once it's gone down to do the last roughing pass, it will just, as I mentioned last time, it'll just go straight out quite slowly, but out to the finish, and then do that final cut. So you will get a little bit of a witness mark there. Now, maybe sometime in the future, someone mentioned, it's worth putting in. Yep, I'll have a look into that. I have worked out the maths and geometry to make it blend that in nicely, but it's going to add to the code, and I'm just trying to keep this as simple as possible for now and just make it usable, and then just see where the problems are. So just keep it simple for now. So I think that's all the top options. Then we've got the feed rate down. So as before, that 100 is how fast it will come down before it starts the cut. And then when you're in the cut and you're spiraling, you've got your feed rate there, so how quickly you're going to go through the material. Then for each spiral, what do you want to step down? So 1 millimeters, whatever you want to do. If you've got it so that the G-code starts the spindle. You can enter the spindle speed there. So in the code that comes up in a minute, you'll see the speed that starts with. Then you could go and generate the G-code. It is worth, before you press it for the first time, is just browse to an area where you want the file to be, because I think this will be blank when the program is the very first time it's ever run. This will be blank here. Browse to, say, the desktop, type in the name of your file. Now the way I've been using this is just keeping it there and then overwriting it, because I don't want to keep the code really. It's just a one-off, and then I can quickly load it into the motion controller. Right, I think that is the quick overview. So let's just start with the circle contour. We'll just keep all those parameters before, then generate G-code. You can see it's pretty quick to come up. It gives you a little message, although it's not very bright, is it? I might change that so it's a little bit easier to see, but it tells you it's saved it, so it's green, so it's successful. You've got the comments as before, switch on the spindle, move to start cut, that 1.9. It's 0.1 millimeters short of the finished cut because you've put 0.1 millimeters radial stock to leave, so that only goes to 1.9. Spirals all the way down as before till you get to the maximum, which is 3 down there. And then it's finished the rough, so it'll put a finish pass on. And then when it's complete, it comes up to 0.1. Switch off the spindle and then rewind the code. And then just in case this gets stuck in some kind of loop, I haven't had that happen yet, but just in case, and it generates a huge amount of G-code and just crashes the machine or something, it just tells you how many lines it's used out of the maximum 10,000. It's a little bit arbitrary. If you want to change that, if you go into Excel, you'll find where the G-code array is defined in the code. That should be commented quite nice and easily. Maybe I'll show you that a bit later, and you can increase that to a much higher number. So just to stop it so it doesn't go in a loop forever. I think that is basically it for the contour. Okay, let's have a look now at the inside pocket feature. So this is very similar to the contour, just some very slight differences. So the first one is we've got this pocket step over. This is the percentage of the tool diameter. Everything else is the same, so tool diameter, the XYZ position, the safe height, circle diameter, any radial stock to leave. So all these are all exactly the same. The main difference is it's if you want a pocket and you want to remove all the material. So it will go down in a spiral just in the center, move out a little bit, go down another spiral, move out a bit, go down another spiral, and eventually clear an entire pocket. This is useful if you don't want to go all the way through to the other side and you just want say a recess for a screw to fit in or something like that. Otherwise, you just use the circle contour. So again, there's a few error checks, and in fact, I was just running it a few minutes ago and just trying to catch it out and trying to crash the program, and I did find a few little errors, so I've put some error checks in for those. So hopefully this time it will be fine. So let's go with those defaults and see what happens if we generate code. Okay, so that's absolutely fine. So let's just try and trip it up then. So if we make our circle diameter 7, we've got 6mm tool, but we've got 30% overlap. So I think, yeah, that won't quite fit. So your overlap is too large. You can't fit that in. So you'd have to bring this down. Let's say so that then works. If I now put a radial stock to leave and put a finish pass on, let's see. Oh, it's still okay there. But if we up this, then it doesn't work again. So just try and check a few things to make sure you can actually machine that without overcutting the hole. The other checks are still the same. So if your circle depth is negative, it doesn't let you do that. If your step down is negative, also it comes up with an error because in the code it would just keep going up forever. It will let you step down, I think, the same amount as a circle, yeah. But if you step down more than the depth, that throws an error. So I think I've kind of caught everything. So that's a quick overview of the inside circle pocket. Then the only other thing to point out on here is we've got the keyway tab. So if you select that, I've cleared all this away. So basically, let's get the circle one working first, and then I'll add whatever I think I need to do in here once I've definitely checked out the circle one is fully working. So there's nothing in that. But as a future expansion, I'll definitely want to include something to do with keyways because it's something I do from time to time.
Okay, so I haven't got that far. I think there's only one thing left to do. Let's try it out. Okay, so the first one we're going to do is something nice and simple. We'll do an inside contour, so basically a circle. Well, the tool diameter is 6. We'll zero it above the start where we want that hole to be cut, or in the center. and then we'll do a 10mm hole, no radial stop to leave. We'll just do a simple hole, no finish pass. We'll keep those parameters the same. We'll step down 1mm per revolution, and we're going to save it on the desktop. So let's hit generate G-code, and there it is, and it tells us the file's saved. So if we go into here, we should be able to load that from the desktop. Oh, there it is. Okay, we'll have a quick look and make sure that looks okay. Looks good. Okay, so now we just need to center the tool over the top of that hole, and then we can get going. Okay, we'll zero it there. Alright, should be ready to go. Right, well, there was a little bit of chatter there as this is very unsupported, but we're just trying out the principle here, and I want to make sure I can fit quite a few samples on. I can also see from here it hasn't quite gone all the way through, so we'll just edit the G-code to cut a little bit deeper, and then we'll run it again. Not super accurate way to measure it, but okay, about 10. Okay, so we can cut simple interpolated holes with no stock to leave. Let's do another hole. Okay, this time we'll try leaving a radial stock to leave, so we'll put 0.1 on there, and we'll include a full depth finish pass. So it'll go all the way around to, let's have a look, should be 9.9, and then it'll leave that 0.1 on there, and then should do a final finish pass and clean that up. So let's load that in, and it'll look very similar, except you can just see once it finishes the last cut round there, it will just move simply out and then do the final finish pass. Alright, let's give that a try. Like it worked, it did the rough pass and then the final finish pass, so just clear it out of the way. I won't measure it this time, we'll leave it till we're finished and move everything out of the way. Right, that's set up for the next hole. Okay, this time we'll try out the pocket feature, so we'll make sure we draw a circle, or want to cut a circle that's big enough so you can see how you'd use this. So we'll go into inside circle pocket. We'll leave the overlap, 30% be okay, and we'll make sure we draw, Let's ask for a 20mm diameter circle. Yeah, we'll go full depth. Yeah, why not? We'll do the radial stock to leave and finish pass as well. And hit generate G-code. Now I get a lot more G-code this time, so let's load that in. Let's do a reload. Now look, see what we got. Okay, so you can sort of see what it's going to try and do. It will just spiral down in the middle, moves over that 30%, goes again, 30% again. Yeah, it's not adaptive, it's very simple. And then it'll do that final clean up cut to the finish pass. Right, let's get going. Alright, let's see what we got. So that was a 10mm hole, just bored out plain. This one's 10mm hole with a 0.1mm stock to leave, and that was a 20mm pocket. So I think we measured that one already, didn't we? So let's try this one. This should be 10. Not easy to measure, kind of upside down, and I can't quite get to the edge of the hole. Alright, pretty close to 10, and this one should be 20. Not the easiest thing to measure with the camera in a way. Alright, so pretty close. So, you know, if that was a critical bore, you could then just change the diameter slightly and just creep up and on the final dimension. But I think the principle is, yeah, you can do holes which are interpolated. You can have a nice finish pass if you're really trying to get. I guess in this example it worked pretty well in both cases, but there might be, you know, you want the surface finish to be much better if you're going to put, say, a dowel pin in there, let's say, and you can pocket out some pretty big holes as well. If this was a pocket that didn't go all the way through, see no reason why that wouldn't have just bored you a nice pocket as well. Okay, I think that's a couple of examples just showing the principle. Seems to work quite well. So obviously at the moment this is in Excel, and ideally you'd have Excel on the same machine that you're running your controller off, so you can get that speed advantage and just transfer in the files. Longer term, maybe, you know, as others have suggested, maybe it should be a standalone application. So, you know, no promises, but let me just show you where I'm at with that side of the investigation.
So something I've been thinking about for a little while is, rather than launch all this under Excel, it'd be much better long term really to write it properly and have a standalone application. So I've downloaded Microsoft Visual Studio, and this allows you to write various applications. You've got different kind of GUI type languages you can use, and different behind the scenes code, C#, Visual Basic, Python, a whole range of them. Depending on exactly what you want to do and you know what suits your application best. So I was given some good advice on the MyCNC forum by a pretty experienced user, and rather than use the Windows forms, I've gone for this Windows WPF, which is the next generation of forms, if you like, and it allows you to do a lot more configuration. It can make it look a lot less like the regular Windows, if that's an advantage to you, and it seemed like the right thing to do. You know, if it's the latest thing, it's got more functionality, why not? And you can see I'm most of the way through. Well, it's probably taken about an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to this point because I'm new to this software. I've been trying to lay it out to make it look like the XL version, and this is generating some XAML. This is some kind of markup language, and it looks like, so as you put this in, it looks like this behind the scenes. So this is the markup language, and that the main menu you were looking at, it's got radio buttons, labels, etc., all the way down here, and then these are all the parameters. So you could go in here and manually edit them if you wanted to, but that's what it's creating behind the scenes that creates this form. So I think the nice thing about this, as far as I can tell then, is you end up creating the form in, say, XML, which is maybe a bit more intuitive or form related, but then the code itself can still be, in my case, I'm going to go with VB, Visual Basic. There's other languages you could use, C# and so on, but if I did that, I'd have to brush up on my C#. It's been a long time since I programmed in that. And since I've written the code anyway in VBA in Excel, I'm hoping that in general it will drop in here without too many modifications. We'll see. I say I'm quite new to using Visual Studio, so I don't know if it's going to be as simple as that. But I think this will be a good investment in time. And so for applications in the future, where I want to write something like this, and then this will create a standalone application, but a little bit easier, certainly to share on things like the GitHub repository for other people to contribute to, you know, make branches off and different versions and contribute to. Again, I'm reasonably new to that, but I get the idea of what it's trying to do. But it feels like this is probably the more professional and better way to release it in general. So I don't know, we'll see. I'll keep playing with this, and if we get to a point I'm happy with it, maybe I'll release it like this. But for now, I'm just going to go with the XL version just to get something out there and get something running. Who knows? Yeah, we'll take it from there.
Okay, so that's something possibly for the future. Again, no promises, but for now, I definitely want people to have the opportunity to play around with it, so I'll release it in the XL format. So there'll be 3 modules that will be downloaded. I'll put a link to where they are on the MyCNC UK forum. I'll put that in the text box down below. So I say 3 modules, you actually need to load 2 of those in, but one of them's a descriptor for some of the graphics, and you just need to keep that in the same directory while it imports. Again, I'll do a video in a minute, just shows you how you get that imported. So clearly you would need to have XL on your machine, ideally on the machine you're also running the controller from, just to save you having to export the G-code across. The idea is it's supposed to be quite quick. So apologies if that doesn't work for you, if you're running on a non-Windows system or you haven't got the ability to run that. It's just what I decided to do initially, just to get this going, but who knows in the future, maybe I'll get the standalone version working, but it is a lot of hours and time to get to that point. So yeah, I think the next thing to do then is just to describe, once you've downloaded those 3 files, what you need to do to at least 2 of them. Well, one is the form, and then the other one is the module that contains all the code.
So my plan is to make this available for people to have a play with, a kind of beta version. So I've exported the form and the modules. So if you go to Alt F11, that takes you behind the scenes. And then if we right click over Excel objects like that, and then we need to import a file. So wherever you've downloaded those 2 files, so we'll go to navigate to that. On my case, I'll put it on the desktop. And it doesn't really matter which order, so we'll put the form in first. So that's the user interface, the GUI if you like. So if we click on that and press open, and that's created a form, and if we open that up, we can right click on that and view the object, and that's the form that you're familiar with now. So in principle that will actually work, but it's probably better to put this next piece of code in as well. It just runs Excel, it means that Excel runs a little bit cleaner, so when you fire it up it doesn't show the Excel each time, you just get the user form. So to do that, if we go back to objects and we right click, so there's kind of 2 steps here. So we need to import, this time we need to import something called this workbook. So that's the piece of code that eventually needs to live on this workbook, but when we click it, you'll see it create this what's called a new class module. And so if we go into that and we right click over that, and it says view code. So this piece of code is the bit that we want to live underneath this workbook. So if we just grab all that and then we press copy, Control C, and then double click on this workbook. So that's blank, and then Control V, we paste it into there. And then what we can do actually is get rid of this because we don't need it. So we'll remove it, say nope. And we're just left with, we've got these 3 worksheets, which we don't need to do anything with. This workbook, so we double click on that. That's what happens when it opens. It does a little bit of tidying up there. And then the MiniGcode is this. And if we view the code, it's the code that we showed before. So that's how you get it in. And then once you've clicked on here, if you press, oh, you can probably save it, save it as whatever you're going to do. And then just press run. Oh, we need to make that active. Right, make sure this is definitely active, then press run, and there we go, then it runs. You'll notice the Excel's running in the background, so when you next run this properly from outside, Excel won't run and you'll just get this user interface. So yeah, you can use this as before, generate your G-code. So we will come out of here. I won't save it, but you'll save it as whatever you want to do, and then we come completely out of there. Nope. And now if I run that, you see it starts to fire up Excel and then it removes it. It's not visible anymore, and you just get the user form. And then when you close it, it just goes away again. If you do want to get into Excel, so if you want to look at the code, you want to say change number of lines, or just generally interested, there's a little blue button down here that says Enter Excel, and you click that, and that gets you in back here. And then you can press Alt F11. And then you're behind the scenes. Now you've got to be a little bit careful because you're still running the form. And so when you close that form down, wherever you've put it, I'll put it on the second screen. When you close it down, it will shut Excel because it's still going to run the code to shut that down. But it does mean you can have a look in here and view the code. If you don't want it to run like that, we want it to be really, interrogatable, if you like. If you go into this workbook, you can option all this out. So you could just remark it out like, sorry, wrong one, like that. So that won't run, and then so when it opens, it doesn't try and hide Excel. And then in here, we view the code. It's enter Excel. Yeah, so this one. So you could hide that as well. Save that. Then when you come in, Excel doesn't get hidden, and you can go and have a look behind the scenes. So that's up to you if you want to do that. If you just want to run it clean, or if you want to look behind the scenes, you've got to do a little bit of editing using that button to get in behind the scenes. So sorry, that was probably a little bit too much for people who don't use this stuff very much. So if that's you, just use the form, and then no problem at all. If you do want to go behind the scenes, you can do that as well. All right. So if you do end up downloading it and you find it useful, it works with your controller, and you don't have any issues with it. If you want to donate to the channel, you want to give a little bit of thanks, and there is a button down here called Thanks underneath the video. So if you click on that, there's a couple of different options you can choose from. I'll leave it entirely up to you. If you just want to use it, then it is free. So it just helps the channel out with small bits of tooling and just keep me motivated, really. So I'll let you decide, but there's that button down below there if you do want to make a small contribution.
Okay, well, I hope you found that useful. If you do want to have a play, by all means follow the link below. You'll download those 3 modules. You only need 2 of them. One's the form and one's the code, but there's another file. The third file is the graphics file. You'll need to just keep that together, and then Excel will sort that out for you. Obviously it is beta code. I've only done very limited testing here. It's worth doing an air cut, so just put the tool above the work, zero it up there, and then just cut in mid-air and just make sure it's going to do what you want it to do. Especially because I've got no way of understanding or what controller you've got and whether your controller is going to interpret this G-code in quite the same way. So just build up your confidence with it before you start to use it for anything on any serious projects, and just take your care with it. Having said that, hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you found it useful. Give me a comment below if you think this is a useful project, and let's see where we end up with it. And see you next time.